All right, James, can you see my slides?
I can.
Amazing. Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday.
Hey, Marissa.
Hi, James.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good too, thank you.
Good.
Doing well, thank you for the grammarians out there in the world. We're all doing quite smashing, actually.
Everyone, it's Friday. If you want to share where you're at in the world, we'd love to see where you're coming from. Per usual, it's always fun to have a group from all over the world. We had a really international group last week, which was fun. Awesome. Kyle's in Duluth, Wisconsin, Indiana. I'm here in San Francisco this week. It's going to be fun. Scotland. Hi, Marcy.
Scotland, yeah, Aberdeen. I was in Edinburgh once. Wonderful time. I wish I had more time to explore the country. London, I've been to the UK, beautiful.
Welcome, welcome everybody. We'll get started in just about 2 minutes, so grab your coffee, grab whatever you need to get settled in before we start. Hi, Dave. Good to see you.
South Carolina. Hey, Elsie, welcome to you. Hey, Dave. Florida. Greetings, Florida. No worries. Guernsey, Channel Islands. Wow. Manchester. Beautiful. Welcome. Philly. Good morning, Philly. Welcome to Philadelphia. Is it always sunny in Philadelphia? Wasn't that a TV show? I think. Hey, Kristen, good to see you. Welcome. Ruby, good to see you. Dave, good to see you again. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, hey.
Hi, everyone. And just for housekeeping, as we get started, I'll go ahead and mute everybody, but if you can also mute yourself, we encourage cameras on and use the chat. Just for sound quality, I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone, and then we'll have time for questions throughout in chat, and then we'll have time for unmuted questions at the end of the session. But just for housekeeping, I'm going to mute everybody now.
Chicago, Detroit, welcome, Midwest. Snoqualmie, Washington. I hope I'm pronouncing. Where is that, Christian? Kristen, what part of Washington is it in? Of course, I can always Google that too.
All right. I think we're at time. Cool. We can chat more after the session. But thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I so appreciate your time and for joining us here for our special Friday community events. We're so excited to be here with you and to have you here in our community. If you're new to these Fridays events, I'll just give you a little bit of rundown on Learnit and who we are. We are a learning and development organization based out of San Francisco, California, but now our team is entirely remote. And joined with me is my colleague, Marissa, who's based in Florida, and the wonderful James Jeffley, who will lead us through this workshop on leading hybrid teams. And just a little bit about how this program works. So a big part of our mission is making our learning and development programming and training accessible to everybody, and to give you a taste of what we do in a full-length workshop in a bite-sized setting every Friday morning. So we host these Friday events every Friday for 45 minutes to an hour at 8:30 a.m. It's part of our weekly event, a community event series. And we tie everything to a monthly theme. So this month we're focusing on people leadership. If you attend all 4 Friday events in August, you receive a badge of certification to share on LinkedIn, to share with your employer on people leadership. And these sessions are all led by subject matter experts and guest speakers like James. And just a couple of housekeeping items. This session will be recorded and we will share it with you in our free community called Offsite, which I'll speak a little bit more about at the end of the session. And that's also where things like badges are available and where you can get live instructor help. So if you have a question after the session, you can also continue the conversation there. And we'll share more information about how to join at the end of the session. So stay tuned for that. And without further ado, I would love to introduce you to James. Many of you who have been attending week over week know James. James is an award-winning international speaker and trainer. He's a coach, author, musician, and minister. And he's been helping people, adults across the world for over 20 years by really helping people improve essential life skills. James led a session for us on emotional intelligence last week. He does a lot on communication and conflict management for our clients as well. And I love collaborating with him on projects for our clients. And he's also the member of Toastmasters International and a 2-time finalist in the World Championship of Public Speaking. So we are in really good hands here, and I'm thrilled to have him. Thank you so much, James, for being here with us on this Friday morning. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Carly. Great to be here with you and great to be here with everyone. Great to see a lot of the same faces showing up today. Lovely to have you all here. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see and hear me and see my screen? We good? All right, excellent. Well, welcome to Leading Hybrid Teams. Wow. So what do we want to talk about today? I want to talk about 4 things. I want to talk about how we reassess and get buy-in for new team norms, because it looks like this is not just a thing that we're doing for a minute. It looks like this is a thing that we're moving towards. We're in the middle of evolution, not a fad. We're in the middle of workplace evolution. So how do we redesign our workplace for this? I want to talk about some tools for shaping hybrid communication and collaboration. I want to talk about how do we develop self-awareness around our possible bias towards in-person communication. And I want to start by giving a state of our reality address. So here we go. We're still standing. Yay. High fives to everybody. High fives to yourselves, right? We've made it through, what is it, a year and 5-ish months or so of this pandemic. And it has affected us from, being inconvenient to absolutely catastrophic, depending on your particular life experience. And because I still see some of the same faces showing up, right? I know that we are still standing. We are resilient. We have figured it out, and we have done what Darwin told us. What Darwin told us we needed to do in order to survive and thrive. We have adapted. And I think COVID, in addition to being, the global trauma event that it is, the prolonged global trauma event that it is also a harbinger of possibly better things. I've been sort of preaching for years that, look, we need to do more work from home. We need to do more telework where possible, right? Because it'll be good for the planet, it'll be good for ourselves, et cetera. And it just seems like that idea wasn't getting a lot of traction. And, along comes a global pandemic, which basically forces everybody to take a look at that. And not we'll have a committee to study it. It's no, you're going to start doing it. You're going to start doing it tomorrow. And so in spite of all of that, we have figured it out. We have adapted and we have made it work. So congratulations to all of us. So here's the state of our work reality. And I would be remiss if I talked about leading remote teams into this new era if I didn't talk about how we got here, right? So we got here because of this thing called COVID-19. And it's a global pandemic. It's a novel virus. We've never seen this before. Our bodies didn't know what to do with it, and it forced us to behave in a responsible way to try and stay safe by working from home. Here's a news flash, folks. COVID is still here. In fact, it and its current 21 variants. I'm going to say that again. 21 variants is going stronger than ever. There's alpha, beta, gamma, delta, eta, iota, kappa, lambda, and 13 others that the World Health Organization is currently tracking, from the US to Brazil to the Philippines to other countries around the world. 21 variants is where we are, folks. Our timeline, who can remember back to when this all started, shelter in place, work from home, March 14th of last year? Anybody remember that, right? Yeah, we were about 674 new cases, 353 7-day average. At the beginning of this year, we hit our peak of a little over 300,000 new cases and a 7-day average of over 259,000 people. Then we got a new administration in that started to take this seriously, and we got vaccines out there, and there was a big push to get people vaccinated, and there were mask mandates, and people were working from home, and we made huge progress. We got down to July 4th. July 4th, we were starting to celebrate our independence from this thing. 2,900 cases, 19,000, almost 20,000 average, right? 7-day average. That's where we were. It was wonderful. Who was starting to get hopeful? Like, yay, this is turning around. Yeah, okay, cool. And now, after a number of states lifted their mandates, their mask mandates, and we're reopening, and with many people still refusing to get vaccinated or wear a mask and be sensible, and with many other states passing anti-masking laws, many schools and companies wanting to get back to normal, even with a new, more virulent variant of COVID-19 circulating around the world that's twice as infectious. Here's where we are as of yesterday. 138,000 new cases and a 7-day average of 126,000. Yeah, it was, right? But it was also, the virus was also denied in the last administration too, William. I don't want to get off on a political soapbox here, but what I'm saying, the whole point of this, the takeaway is that this is going strong. We had made progress and now we're not. And so as long as many people continue to resist science-based and common sense measures to contain and reduce this, our current work-life situation will not abate. It will not change. And so this idea about, are we going back to the office or are we going back to normal? No, this is our normal. And as long as this continues, this will continue to be our normal. And that's where we are, 36.4 million cases, 620,000 deaths. And that's why we're still in a hybrid work world. That and the fact that many of us actually like hybrid. How many of you like this hybrid situation, right? Because I know some of you have to go into the office because you're essential workers, or some of you may have the ability to work a little bit from home and a little bit from the office. There are some benefits to this, right? So WebEx did a survey of a bunch of their customers, WebEx Cisco, and in their study, they cited a Gartner survey of company leaders that found 80% of them plan to allow employees to work remotely at least part of the time after the pandemic, if we ever get there. 47% will allow workers to work from home full time. And in a PricewaterhouseCoopers survey of 669 CEOs, 78% agree that remote collaboration is here to stay for the long term. So what we're doing right now, we're just going to keep doing more of that. If I had a crystal ball, that's what I think I would see in it. And most of you probably see the same thing. And actually, remote work is good for business. $600 billion is what we lost per year to workplace distractions. People just milling around and, hey, how's it going? Blah, 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 the weather, the sports, right? Remote workers are 35 to 40% more productive than their in-office counterparts. And I think part of that is you don't have a commute, right? And you don't have constant distractions. 94% of surveyed employers report productivity has either been the same or has increased in work from home. How many of you would say and you can just type a yes or put your hand up. How many of you would say you feel a little more productive working from home? Right? Fewer distractions, easier commute, etc. So 98% believe that future meetings will include remote participants. This is from the WebEx research. 57% expect to be in the office fewer than 10 days a month. 97% want changes to make the office safer before they return. Just drop a yes in the chat box if you agree with this. How many of you would say you don't feel entirely comfortable with the safety measures put in place by your company to make sure that if you go back into the office, you might be contagion free? Anybody completely satisfied with your companies? Yeah, I'm seeing a little bit. Right. And if not, then I would encourage you to ask your company to, ask them what are they doing about safety measures to, safeguard those who are returning to the office, whether it's 1 day a week or 5 days a week. Right. Some people are saying yes, are satisfied. Some people are saying we need to be safer. Right. Exactly. Good enough simply isn't enough. As we adjust to remote work, that meant quick decisions had to be made to keep the business running. So we've been through that phase. That was phase one. Quick decisions. How do we just keep the doors open? Now it's about thinking long term. So you and your teams and your organizations and companies have to be having these long-term discussions about what does work look like? What do we want it to look like going forward? How are we going to deal with this hybrid workforce of some people here and some people there? And what tools and technology do we need? It requires the right strategy, people, culture, and technology being at the center of it. 49% of people indicate working remotely makes them feel isolated. This is a thing you have to take into account when you're designing this new workplace. How do we make people working from home feel included? 32% say that their connection to company culture has suffered because we're not in proximity to each other. We're not doing the company lunches and hanging out with people having coffee or the various other social activities that we used to do in our companies. How many of you miss some of those social things? Right? And pandemic, right? There's a legitimate reason why we're not doing these things. And these things are important. So in your deliberations, you got to be thinking about, okay, how do we get that culture back? Or how do we create a new culture of inclusivity and connection? 90% commonly experience issues collaborating when working from home because of technology. How many of you have experienced, especially back at the beginning, technology issues with getting on, getting connected, collaborating with people? Who's still experiencing some of those issues? It's amazing. I teach a lot of classes and I still see people that are having bandwidth issues, or they don't have a camera or a microphone, or their computer's too slow or something. So if this is the direction that we're headed in, and we need to seriously address the technology and the digital divide, and make sure part of inclusivity is making sure that everybody that works in our organization has access to high-speed internet, has up-to-date computer technology, collaboration software, cameras, microphones, and the appropriate training to know how to use all of that technology so that it doesn't become an obstacle. You can have all the technology in the world, but if you don't know how to share the file with someone or launch the meeting or set up the meeting or do the conference call, it doesn't really help you, right? So here's where we are. Here are 5 essential elements of hybrid work. So when you're designing, and I hope you all are having these conversations with your organization. So when you're designing this new hybrid workforce, number 1, what you do has to have flexibility at the heart of it, because that's where we are, right? It's got to be flexible. 97% of people in the survey believe that hybrid work requires new technology to improve collaboration. So that's the elephant in the room for most people. You have to deal with that first. There are a number of organizations who have figured out we need to get on one platform, whether it's Google platform or it's a Microsoft Teams platform or it's an Asana platform or whatever it is, Slack, whatever your thing is. They figured out we need to get on one platform where we can communicate and video conference and share files with each other and collaborate. If you're still doing patchwork, oh, well, I'll send that to you as an attached file in an email. And then where does that live? Oh, it lives on Lars's computer. Okay, well, did Lars share it with anybody? No. Okay. But we need that document because anybody feel me here? Right. It's still a thing for some people. So you got to be flexible. You got to be adaptable. You have to be inclusive. You got to think inclusion here, because you're not going to have people sitting around the conference table with you or working in the office with you. Not everyone. 97% of people surveyed say they desire collaboration features that make them feel included in meetings. And I'll share an interesting bit of technology with you a little later on that might actually help you achieve this. I don't work for them. I don't make any money from them, but I've used it before, and I think it's pretty cool, and it might solve some problems for some of you. Your future work hybrid situation has to be supportive. You got to have support at the center of this. 98% are concerned about returning to the office due to safety and their ability to collaborate with remote colleagues. So will I be safe with the people around me? And if I feel safe, will I be able to effectively collaborate with the folks who are not around me? You have to have discussions around that and come up with a plan for that. It also has to be secure, right? Because the more remote work you do, viruses, malware, we've seen just in the last, year alone, how, major systems have been hijacked for ransomware. We had the thing with the oil pipeline. Remember that in the southeast part of the United States where somebody hacked them for ransom, and, people were putting gasoline in trash bags, hoarding, it was toilet paper all over again, except with gasoline in the southeast. And it's got to be managed. 68% of IT admins are concerned about their ability to scale collaboration solutions for hybrid work. So if IT departments, if you weren't busy before, you're going to be even busier now, because you got to figure out all this technology piece. Is this making sense, folks? As you look at this list, and you can drop it in the chat box, how many of you are thinking, or which one of these are you thinking, wow, we really need to get a handle on that one? You can just put the name of it: flexible, inclusive, supportive, secure, or managed. Which one of those do you think our organization really needs to get a handle on? Sophia says secure. I hear you. Inclusive, Amalia, right? Secure, supportive, inclusive, supportive, right? Absolutely. Inclusive, great. So you got to plan for hybrid work success. Hold on a second. Let me zoom here. So what this means, you got to create a workplace strategy that works with your business strategy, culture, and considers workforce preferences. This can't continue to come top down. This has to be driven from bottom up, right? The workforce, the employees have to decide what it is that is in their best interest and how they want this future hybrid work place to look, right? Everybody has to be at the table in designing this. It just can't come from the folks in the lofty tower up above. We've got to also revive the workplace. So you're going to have space issues, right? There are some organizations that are actually downsizing. They're reevaluating their real estate position. Like, well, if half of our workforce is going to be working from home, we don't need this giant building anymore. Is anybody rethinking their real estate situation? Right? And so maybe they're leasing part of the building, or they're just giving up a portion of it, right? Somebody asked it. Okay, Carly, mark that so we can come back to it later. You mentioned great question from someone. There are a number of organizations that I know right now are experimenting with this hoteling kind of a situation where they will have X number of spaces for people who want to come into the office and work for in-person meetings or whatever. But there's an app, and you go into the app and then you choose the day and what space you want, and then you reserve that like a hotel. But the idea there is that you will not be there taking up a physical space that is yours and decorated with plants and pictures 24/7. And we've also got to look at elevating the employee experience. We got to prioritize the physical and mental well-being of people to ensure not only productivity, but also their health and welfare. If your company has an employee assistance program, yeah, that's going to be working overtime. And if you don't have one, you should. You got to be thinking about people's well-being, because this is a huge change. Doing what we've been doing the last year and 5 months has been a huge change. And now adapting to this whole new thing is another huge change, right? So this might be a little easier for some people, but for others, not so much. We got to have safe and efficient facilities. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning. We got to make sure we got filters in, and you know, are you sanitizing? You're putting plexiglass, partitions up. How are you safeguarding the people that are physically on site? COVID's still here. It hasn't gone away, and we have more infectious variants. No one is immune. No one is immune. Even people who are vaccinated can still get it, right? Your symptoms may be less. You might not wind up in the hospital or dead, but you could still get it and you could still transmit it. So we have to put safety first here. So how do we reassess and get buy-in from people? Number one, ask people about their preference for work from home or work from office. Poll your employees, poll your team members. What do you all want to do? How many of you want to work from home? How many of you want to work from office? How many days? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days? What does that look like for you? We're not going to have a cookie cutter approach here. You could look at what Google's doing or what Facebook is doing or what some other company is doing, but you've got to figure out what works best for your people and your culture. You have to design your own thing. You also have to ask people about their needs, their personal needs and their work needs. Some people might need to have even more flexible work schedules than the typical 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. Some people might need to work in blocks. In fact, what this suggests for me is an entire mental model shift. We have to go from thinking of, oh, well, if I see them in their seat, they're working, right? Presence to production. We have to shift from presence, I see them present in the workplace, to are they getting things done, right? And if we're shifting to production, productivity, I don't really care where you work or when you work or how long you work. All I care is that you meet the objectives, that you honor the agreements, that you get your job done. That, I think, should be the focus, not are they in the office. We got to get rid of this location-based management model. We have to allow for greater flexibility in where, as I was saying, where and when the work gets done, where feasible. I realize for some of you, you have to come to the office because that's where the thing is, especially if you're in manufacturing. So this doesn't apply to everybody. And we have to start with an intention to redesign work. Not just come up with a schedule, to literally redesign how we work with each other and how we collaborate. And we got to let employees be a part of that. Is this resonating with anybody so far? Okay. Here's what employees want and what employees expect. Number one, they want safety. going back to the workplace with uncertainty about who's vaccinated, who isn't, are we going to wear masks? What's the filtration system like? Are we going to be in close proximity with other people? That's stressful. That's stressful. And I'm not saying that, workplaces should require that people get get vaccinated, because that's stressful too, because that's about, being forced to do a thing. But what I'm saying is we have to put safety first, and we have to figure that out. Social distance, cleanliness protocols, air filtration, etc. We employees want belonging. They want to feel included. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is level 3, belonging, right? And so working from home has damaged that seriously for a lot of people. And so how do we get that back? We have to invest in technology that allows for phone and video conferencing for work meetings, as well as establishing regular available to meet times where even if somebody is working at home, we know they are available to meet at that time, and then we can just pick up some technology and connect with them, right? So we've got, and any other social things that we can do, etc. But the big thing about belonging going forward is going to be the technology piece. There was a glaring digital divide in this country for a long time, and there still is. And that digital divide got a huge spotlight thrown on it because of work from home and COVID. Only 40, this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, federal government, only 43.6% of US employees actually had the ability to work from home at the start of this. Less than half. The other 56%, they had to borrow a computer, grab one from work if they could. Maybe they didn't have good Wi-Fi. You've probably heard stories of people sitting out in the parking lots of McDonald's and Starbucks just to try and get onto their Wi-Fi to do a work meeting, right? That's still a problem for a lot of people. And organizations, if you expect people to fully participate with technology, I say you have some responsibility in helping them get that technology. Is it easy? No. Is it cheap? No. Right? But we've got to figure that part of it out. Productivity. We still got projects, we still got deadlines, and we still got customers. The work goes on. So we need to focus on having clear goals and objectives, regular communication and meetings, tracking KPIs, and following up with teams on their tasks. Employees also want comfort. Many people have gotten accustomed to easier, more comfortable work from home environments, not having a commute, not having to get up at ridiculous o'clock in the morning to get yourself ready or the kids ready or to fight that traffic. If you live anywhere in a major city, you got traffic. How many of you do not miss the commute? Right? Right? My commute's like 7 seconds. I just walk right across the hall. Bam, here I am. Woohoo! No toll, no traffic, etc. So, people aren't going to be, willing to easily give up that sense of comfort, more time with the family, right? That sort of thing. They've found a certain groove now. It's going to be hard to pull people back into the office. And finally, people like having some sense of autonomy and control over their schedule and their work environment. They like the freedom that work from home offers. So to give that up after a year and a half of having it and enjoying the taste of it's probably going to be more difficult than you imagine. In a recent FlexJob survey, 65% of respondents reported wanting to be full-time remote employees post-pandemic. 65%. 31% want a hybrid remote work environment. That's 96% of people polled who desire some form of remote work. 96%. You need the right tools if you are going to do hybrid. So number one, you got to make sure you've invested in cloud computing. You just need to do this. If you haven't done this, even if COVID wasn't a thing, you're already behind your competitors. It's like people who didn't embrace the internet back in 2000. Oh, that's going to be a fad. Nobody's going to use that. Yeah, sorry. Missed out on that one. So whether it's Google Suite or Microsoft Teams or Salesforce or remote backup and data storage, you got to be in the cloud because that's where it's happening right now. And it facilitates remote work because as a remote worker, you can be on your phone, your tablet, your laptop from anywhere in the world where you have internet connectivity and access your files, share your information, join meetings, etc. Right? Business apps. You gotta pick a system. I'm not saying which one. I've talked to your team. You gotta pick a system. You can't keep doing like, okay, well, some stuff is gonna be on this program and some stuff's gonna be on that program, and we don't really have a good way to share files with each other. You gotta step into the 21st century. So whether that's Teams, Google Suite, Slack, Trello, Jira, Asana, Monday, Microsoft Planner, Zoom, WebEx, you got to have the tools of the 21st century modern hybrid workforce. It's an investment in time, in money, in training, in getting people up to speed on how to use those tools. But for the people who have, their lives and their businesses have been fundamentally changed. How many of you had organizations that resisted technology, but once you did and you got the hang of it, you were like, oh my gosh, why didn't we do this sooner? Anybody feel like that? Right? Oh yeah, it's like, what? We can easily do this and go there. Oh, it's like the heavens open up. Oh, right? And it's just amazing. You got to have mobile tools because if you're expecting people to work from home or wherever, phones, laptops, tablets, computers to use at home, check with your employees and see if they still need that technology. High speed Wi-Fi or high-speed internet connectivity. This is still an issue for a number of people. VPN remote access for secured connection to your organization. Voice over internet protocol. IT department should be busy for the next 25 years getting everybody up to speed on this. You also need to look at unified communications to enhance collaboration and improve communication options like voice calling, video conferencing, instant message, content sharing, and collaboration. Right? For those of you who are in organizations that have done these things, what would you say? Just drop it in the chat box. Would you say it's so much easier to connect with people, to collaborate with people, and to share information if you're on one of these platforms? All three so much easier, yes. Right? And then finally, you need some project management tools. If you're working on projects, and many of you probably are, Asana, Monday, GitHub, Jira, Microsoft Teams, with Microsoft Planner. There are a lot of tools out there. I'm not saying which one to get. I'm saying explore them, see what's right for your organization, and pick one and get everybody on the same platform. I do a number of classes with larger organizations, and it's interesting when I'm teaching classes like project management for the rest of us, how so many of them will say, well, in this department, we use this software. In that department, they use that software. And in that department over there, they use a completely different software program. I'm like, how do you all talk to each other if you're working on the same project? Some of this stuff you got to get on the same page with, folks. You got to get on the same page with. And then the last one here is actually video conferencing. That's been a thing. Can you imagine what working through this whole pandemic would have been like if we didn't have Zoom or WebEx or Skype or Teams or any of the other video or Google Meet? If we didn't have any of that, can you imagine what this would have been like if all we had was email? You thought you were in email hell before. I have 2,000 emails a day. That would have been nuts, right? And some folks still have not caught up to this. So this might involve your organization having to upgrade its own internet service and bandwidth to be able to accommodate this. I did a class a week or two ago, and I usually, if you've been in classes with me at Learnit, I usually invite people to turn their cameras on at the outset because I want to have it feel more like a conversation. Well, in this one class, only one person turned the camera on. through the whole class. And I mentioned earlier, later on in the class about how, most of our communication, over half of it is visual, right? And then another person turned the camera on, and then somebody commented in the chat box, the reason why we probably don't turn our cameras on, you're wondering, is because at the outset of COVID, we had all our employees come in, 300 plus people, we all turned our cameras on. And then the bandwidth got sucked out of the universe and everything ground to a halt. So after that, the word came down from the leaders, no cameras on during meetings. And here we are now. Yeah, I know, right, Peter? Here we are now. I'm like, we're not 300, it's like 12 of us. You can turn your cameras on. I'm sure it'll be fine. But some people still struggle with it, right? So here's one tool that I think could, and even if we have video conferencing, it's not the end all be all, right? And let me show you a quick video. And this is a tool that we actually started, we got at Learnit, and we were going to use at the very beginning before we went into lockdown. We were looking at doing our own version of hybrid classes. So I would be an instructor would be in the classroom with a few people there physically with each other, and then other folks could log in remotely. And there was this camera in the middle, and this was the camera. So I'm gonna play this here for you.
Lots of people use laptop computers because they're quick and easy to set up for video conferencing meetings. But you can see one of the limitations here. It's got an extremely limited view. So for example, you might not even realize that Mark is sitting over here unless Rebecca swiveled the computer to show him. Also, if this were a stand-up meeting, most likely someone's head might be completely out of the frame during that. So overall, while this is a nice quick hack, it's not necessarily a helpful experience. So this is a pretty typical view that you might have in one of your conference rooms with the camera above the TV. So while it's helpful that I'm looking straight at the camera because it's mounted there, the distance and the angle might make you feel a bit like a fly on the wall. Also, a lot of the conversation happens among the in-room participants. So when I start talking to Max, you don't get to see my face anymore. You don't get to see the expressions. It can make you feel lonely or like you're watching the meeting instead of participating in the meeting. So
anybody experience that? Right? So here's what this thing does.
Lots of people use laptop computers because so while it's helpful, it might make you feel among the expressions. It can make you lonely or like.
So the owl was designed to give you a more face-to-face experience. There's actually a 360-degree camera at the top of the owl, which is what's giving you the panorama at the top and also a full view of the room. You can actually see everything that we can see.
And when different people talk, the owl automatically focuses on them, so you can see them clearly.
This makes it easier to read body language and see visual cues to really understand what's going on in our room. It makes it easier for you to contribute and lets our employees feel like they're part of the meeting, not just watching from above.
Isn't that cool? The 360-degree camera, something like that. It automatically switches to bring that person into the frame, whoever's talking. I don't work for them. I don't sell this. I don't make any money off of them. I've actually used the technology before. Amalia said that their company got it. And Kanu says they got it before COVID too, did great on that, right? So anyway, it's a thing that might help remote workers feel more included, right? Because they can see everybody in the meeting and it's almost like they're actually there while still maintaining work from home and safety. All right, I have a couple of other thoughts I want to share with you and we'll get out of here. So we've talked about why we're here and how work from home has been, pretty good overall for a lot of people, and the things that we need to do to make sure that that can be even better going forward. But here's the other part of this, folks, the people part of this. How do we recognize and overcome any potential bias we have towards work from home staff? And the bias that we have to fight against is what's called proximity bias. The incorrect assumption that people will produce better work if they are physically present in the office and managers can see and hear them doing their jobs. This was management philosophy for the last 200 years, right? Managed by presence. Well, the last 1.5 years of being productive from home has determined proximity bias to be a lie. Thank you, Mari. So here are 5 steps to overcoming proximity bias. you have to have equal opportunity contact. So while somebody might, just pop into your office and go, hey, do you have a minute to talk about blah, blah, blah? You can't only do that with the people that you see. This is why having, available to meet or connect times is so critical. So you got to be willing to say, oh, hey, let's bring, Carly into this. Click, and then boom, you pop her up on the video screen, and now you and Carly and the other person have the conversation. It's not about who's in the room. It's about who you need to have in the room to brainstorm, problem solve, or work on this issue, right? And the same goes for sending after the fact documents or fragments of communication. You need to include people as much as you can real time in what's going on. Everybody has to have equal opportunity to connect. Number 2, you got to include remote workers. You have to be intentional about including remote workers in meetings early and often. Don't just get 90% of your way through a meeting and then decide, oh, and let's hear from Patrick, who's logged in from his home. Don't wait to ask Patrick at the end of the meeting, right? Call on people as you see them in person and on the screen. And by the way, you're going to need a screen if you don't have that. Number 3, you have to have intentional metric-based management. As I said earlier, you can't be looking at, okay, well, who's here in the office and that's how I know they're working. No. Stop caring about when people work. Stop caring about how long people work. Stop caring about where people work. Care more about the projects you've assigned them and the deadlines and the outcomes that you're expecting. You manage by objective, not by location. Am I making sense here? Right? So you got to have weekly check-ins with people and go, okay, what's your task list for this week? All right, we're going to check in on Wednesday, blah, 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 and turn them loose, let them go, because they know on Wednesday you're having a video call where you're going to inspect what you expect. That may not be how a number of people work, but it's got to be how we start to work. Even if we weren't working from home, even if we weren't doing this, I have still lauded this as a better management approach. Presence doesn't tell you anything other than they're there. How many of you have goofed off at work before? Right? So just because you're there, oh, I see Laura in the office, I see Olivia. Laura's on Snapchat. Laura's on Facebook. Olivia's updating her Instagram, right? Not actually. She's on her phone right now. She's on Amazon buying some stuff, right? Number 4, equal opportunity development. You've got to create opportunities for all your staff to be able to move up in the organization, not just the ones you see every day. This is why managing based on metrics and outcomes is so much more important. You got to pick the best person for the task, not just the ones that you see. And the last one is you got to lead by example. Workplaces often change when they see the leaders in the organization adopting the new behaviors. If you've got the CEO or the senior leadership team that's always coming into the office and working day and night, while some of you work from home, what message does that send? You got to be in the office. You got to be in the office. So this has to start with leadership. Leaders have to say, you know what? I'm going to work from home today. And I don't care where you work, at home, at the office, whatever is most conducive to your well-being and, and productivity. So it's got to start with leaders. Leaders have to start doing this too. You have to embrace this. It's not a fad, folks. This is where we are. This is our new reality. And here's the cool thing about this. We get to design it. We get to build it if we want to. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. That's all I got. Carly?
James, thank you so much for another great session. A couple of my main takeaways, I think, are we need to shift from presence to production. People need to feel a sense of belonging. High quality technology is a crucial catalyst for collaboration. And I love just the idea of managed by objective, not by location. So many good takeaways. Everyone, if you enjoyed today's session, just give James a little bit of love in the chat. Give him a little reaction, maybe a little party hat emoji. It's the fun thing about these virtual sessions. We can show our instructors some love right off the bat. So amazing. Thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate it. We did have some great questions come in. Oh, awesome. A lot of really great feedback.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Deborah. We did have some great questions come in. I want to highlight a few from Kristen that came in the beginning. And then we had another one from Vitania. And then everyone, feel free to keep adding your questions to the chat. And we'll leave a little bit of time at the end for more. But just to give these couple from Kristen some light. Kristen asked, how quickly can a culture really shift to accommodate in-person with remote, so a hybrid workforce? How do we get out of that out of sight, out of mind culture?
Great question, Kristen. Two things. Number one, how quickly did we shift from in-person to remote only? For a lot of us, that had to happen in a day. Remember back to March, what is it, 14th or 15th of last year? At least in California, the governor said, hey, this is out of control, it's serious, lockdown, shelter in place, work from home. Starting tomorrow, how quickly did we shift? 24 hours. Now, the second point, it probably won't take 24 hours. It'll probably take longer than that, Kristen, but here's what I would recommend, that you start having meetings about it now, designing it now, and implementing it now, and treat it as a work in progress. It's not the final thing. You're going to do some stuff, and then you will iterate. You'll tweak it, you'll keep what you like, and you'll discard what you don't, and you'll come up with a new thing. But you just got to start doing it. How do I learn to swim? I got to go to the pool. I got to stick my toe in the water, and at some point I got to wade in. Maybe I don't jump in the deep end. That was last March. Jump. Right? But at least now we get to wade in and put our water wings on and find our way as we go. I hope that answers your question. What was the next one, Kathy?
Thanks so much.
Yeah, Olivia, who moved your cheese? Here's the secret. The cheese is always moving. It just moves so slowly that we don't think it's actually moving, but the cheese is always moving. In this case, the cheese just moved really quickly. It's like, where'd my cheese go? Right? The cheese is always moving. What's the next one, Carly?
Awesome. We had another question actually just about the OWL camera. Everyone has to, in order to use the OWL camera, James, everyone has to be in the same physical location, correct? It's intended for...
Well, the people who are in the physical location have the OWL camera that sees everybody in the room, but it can connect to Zoom meetings, to Google Meet, to a number of other meeting services, and those people can be at home on their laptops or their desktops or their tablets or their mobile devices and still log into that meeting. The remote workers experience will be like you saw in the video, when somebody talks, the camera shifts to include them in the frame, right? The people in the workplace, they will have hopefully will have a video screen where they'll be able to see whatever your setup is at home.
Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Great. And before we get into some more questions, I just wanted to share with people how they can access this recording after the session. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen really quickly, and then we'll jump into some more questions. But in case people have to drop off a couple minutes early, I want to encourage you that you can access today's recording from today at our online learning community that's free, called Offsite. So it's available by scanning that code or just at offsitebylearnit.com. And there you can get live instructor help. If you ask a question on the home screen or within the topics area, we'll get back to you within one business day. And we also have exclusive Ask the Expert sessions. And then we also have more full-length 2-hour workshops where we'll be testing out new content. And also it's a great way to meet our new instructors. So we have Brian Lanier, who's a newer Learnit instructor, teaching 2 sessions next week. Again, those are fully complimentary to offsite members, and a great way to get more of a feel for our in-depth workshops and meet new instructors as well. So I'd love to see you in there. The recording will be posted, as well as the presentation slides from today, right in offsite. So please do join us there. And then we also have a great lineup of events coming up in the next 2 weeks. More on the technical side, we'll be talking a lot about how to manage your inbox and communicate via email. So it'll be both on the technical side of how to use Outlook and different email tools to really make yourself more organized, and also just how to write effective emails and save yourself time there. You know, whether you're managing people or you're an employee that's trying to communicate, or maybe you're communicating in job interviews. So it'll be a great way to learn how we all use email. And again, everyone who attends all 4 sessions this month will get a badge certification on people leadership. So thanks to everyone who's attended their second, and we hope to see you in the next 2 weeks. But with that, that is all housekeeping items. And I wanted to just turn it back to see if we have any other questions in the chat. If anyone wants to come off mute, go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and turn you off mute, and we can take questions for the last 5 or so minutes that way. But thank you again, James, for being here. It's always a pleasure, and I always learn something new.
Thank you, my pleasure. Who's got a question? Burning question. A lukewarm question. Yeah, go ahead, kind of. Mute button, lower left corner of your window. All right, okay. Or she's typing. Sorry.
While people are adding questions, I'm not sure exactly what Kristen meant by this question, but she asked, do you envision addressing assessments and buy-in items included in a new role in companies? So I guess James, do you envision there being some sort of new role to kind of manage hybrid dynamics going into the new year? Or if that's maybe a function more of human resources, or kind of, do you envision that coming to fruition in any kind of new role at companies?
Maybe. It could certainly be. It might be some offshoot of, or some collaboration between human resources and the IT department, like measuring how many people are logging on remotely, what level of engagement is happening in meetings, how worker surveys of how easy is it for you to collaborate with others using the technology tools that we have available, those sorts of things. But there's got to be a primary focus on making sure that the folks who are working from home are included, have the technology tools and the training to be able to use those tools in service of working with each other and getting our work done. How about different personalities within the group? Your presentation makes sense in theory, but I can see different personalities either fighting all this or trying to run. Yeah, you know what, Sophia? You're going to have that no matter what. You're going to have all those different personalities trying to work with each other or work against each other, whether they're in person or they're not in person. How many of you would agree with me that there are some people you're glad you don't have to see every day in the office? Not asking you to name names, but you know who they are, right? Woo, I am so glad I do not have to go in the office and see them every day. So for some folks, that's a blessing. So you take that and run with it. But, these are the same kinds of problems that we've always had. How do these personalities deal with those personalities? Here's the deal. The personalities aren't the problem. The problem is our judgment about the personalities. The problem is judging, oh, Lars is analytical. He's always got to bring a spreadsheet to every meeting. Oh, it drives me nuts. Why can't we just get it done? And Lars is thinking, well, Laura, she just wants to get it done all the time and doesn't look at any of the really important details. And you got to look at the details. And here's what's true. They're both right, but they need to come closer to each other. Laura has to look at a few more details. Laura has to leave a few details out and focus on the bottom line. Somewhere in the middle is a happy medium. And you can get there if you strip your judgment out about how each other's wrong. Because what's true, Laura, you do have some detail in you too. And Lars, you do have some bottom line get it done in you as well. You just don't live there. You visit there on occasion. You hang out in the other spaces. Does that make sense? You have to have awareness about it. You have to have a willingness to change yourself because you can't change them. If any of you ever come to any of my classes or any classes thinking, I'm going to learn tools for how to change other people, you should just stop because you're not. All you can do is change yourself and change how you react to other people. And I guarantee you, the moment you start to do that, your life becomes a little easier. Who knows this to be true because you've done the work? You started to change yourself. Right, Patrick? Right, Laura? Right, Olivia? So, all right. Couple more questions. What do you got?
We had a good one come in from Vitanya, and then I think Latanya has her hand up as well. But what do you recommend for team members, extroverts who suffer from not physically being around the team, so that thrive off of energy of other people?
Ooh, yeah, I get it because I'm kind of like that too. I like proximity. I like the energy of being with other people in the room. You have to assess this on a case-by-case basis for yourself. You have to ask, how safe is it for me to be in this environment with other people? This is where it starts to get into some dicey territory, because for most of you, when you do the calculus in your head, you're thinking, well, if I'm vaccinated, I want to be around other vaccinated people too. Are you going to ask your work colleagues, you vaccinated, you vaccinated, you vaccinated, you vaccinated? Now we're getting into a thing, right? But if you know that other people are vaccinated, still show up with a mask. There's nothing to say you can't meet, in an open area somewhere and, at a park, at a bench, 6 feet across from each other, apart from each other, and, have a conversation, have a coffee, have a walk, right? You can still do some of those things, but you got to prioritize your safety. COVID is still here and it doesn't care about you. It does not care about your age, your gender, what country you're from, what color your skin is, how much money you have in the bank. It is an equal opportunity infector. And some of you know this to be true from firsthand experience. What else?
Latanya, did you have your hand up? Happy to bring you off mute if you have a question. We have about a minute left or so.
Latanya, you have a question? No question? Okay, no question.
No, all right. All right, well, I think we can go ahead and wrap up, James. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate all of you for being in this community. And I just want to emphasize too that this is meant to be a safe, inclusive space. And so we ask that we just keep the chat really respectful and inclusive moving forward. So I just want to thank everyone for being a part of this community and respecting that as well. So thank you so much. And we hope to see you next Friday and in offsite. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everyone.